Well, we have another sunny day here, so I'm going to go on a bit of a road trip. So I talked a bit about this line of unbanded unbanded Alec Bradley cigars. Oh, and got a few more. They're $5.50 at my tobacconist. So the little thicker ones are called shorties, and I did a review of the shorty. These are called Sinoritas. I believe it's the same blend, but this video isn't necessarily about this cigar or my trips. It's about sort of the state of the industry in Canada. As far as I can tell, the cigar industry is fine here. Like, I know quite a few people who smoke cigars and enjoy them. The problem is the regulations here. Now, I'm trying not to turn this video into a me complaining kind of video. I just want to talk about some of the strange things that are happening here, and I think in other markets too, and how they're actually legitimately affecting the tobacco industry. And there's a reason I picked an Alec Bradley for this conversation. So here in Canada, we have these greenish brown bands that they have to put over their labels, because our government decided that fancy labels on cigars are trying to market to young people. And number one, I think that's utterly foolish, because the fancy label on a $30 cigar is not marketing to anybody who's young. I can't think of any underaged type of person that smokes. First, I don't know anyone under 19 who smokes. Secondly, I can't think of anybody under 19 who would be spending $20, $30, $40, even $5 on one stick. When I was 15, I knew lots of people who smoked cigarettes, and they were buying packs of cigarettes, and none of them were buying cigars. So I think the whole covering up the label thing is just kind of foolishness that we really shouldn't be doing. Anyways, Alec Bradley at the top of my mind. Apparently they sold to, I think it's called the Swiss or the Sweden Tobacco Company, and now they're not even going to be putting the nice bands on the cigars at all. They're going to just put the green ones on. So currently, often when you buy a cigar in Canada, there's a green label. If you peel it off, or brown, whatever color it is, it's ugly. If you peel it off gently enough, you'll be able to see the nice cigar label underneath. And one thing I like is I like opening my humidor and I like seeing the labels. Like, a lot of work goes into that branding. And the cigar itself is an artisanal thing. The band on the cigar is artisanal. The box they come in is artisanal. It's all artists that have worked hard to design those things. So, in my mind, I think you're kind of just... A system like this is bad for the art of it, first and foremost, because, people get paid good money to design these bands and to update them. And if the cigar companies are going to stop doing it, then that's a whole lot of people who have a job where they're paid for their passion and won't have a job anymore. That's not cool. So yeah, there's that, which is kind of a gripe of mine. Even when you go to buy a box of cigars, they have a big label covering the artwork on the box. It's kind of outrageous, I think. But I do choose to live in this country, and that is one of the rules. And in Canada, it is a pretty great place to live. Unfortunately, more and more, we're losing rights and stuff, but it's still better than a lot of places in the world. So, I think in futures, maybe different governments will change some of these policies, because, I don't know, to me it's not great. So as a result of policies like this, from what I understand, from what the manager of my tobacconist told me, is the Alec Bradley Company is just not even going to be putting fancy bands on their cigars at all. Now, I have a little jar at home, and I just started throwing my cigar bands in it a few years ago. I had seen it in a video. Someone had a big jar full of bands, and I thought that was cool, and I have this jar kicking around. And it's a sealed jar, so it's kind of like what I was using as my humidor originally. I'd throw a Belvita pack in there and a little bit of cedar, and boom. So the jar itself kind of smells like cigars because of the labels were on cigars, and it's a sealed jar. So I'm kind of glad that I kept that, because I'll be able to, still see that stuff even when it's not around anymore. But I think this is where you get into that overstepping when it comes to your political leaders. There's the whole like my body, my choice thing, but then they're like trying to suppress the products that are available. Meanwhile, I live in Ontario, so cannabis is legal, which is a full-on inebriate, right? Mixed feelings about that one, right? We're worried about kids who will never buy a $50 cigar, buying a $50 cigar, so we're covering the bans up. But across the road from my apartment, I can go spend $10 and get a little package of candy that'll make me high for like 3 days if I wanted to. I kind of feel like the candy that makes you high is more targeted at young people than the cigar band with the fancy artwork on it. Yeah, that's me drinking a Perrier. I do like my bubbly waters. Now, another thing I've heard is there's some countries where if you were born after a certain year, you're not even allowed to buy a tobacco product, even once you're like 20, 30, 40 years old. So it looks like there's a proper attempt to actually ban tobacco, much in the same way that they banned alcohol, in the 1920s. There's gonna, some countries it's like, there's not saying that you can't buy it now, but if you're born after a certain year, I think it's like 2009, something like that, you won't be allowed to buy a cigar or a cigarette or anything. And I guess they hope, by the time all those people grow up, they'll completely wipe out the tobacco industry. And I have no idea why you want to wipe out a tobacco industry. Yes, cigars, cigarettes, tobacco as a whole is unhealthy. Yes, I understand these kind of products do put pressure on the healthcare system. To be fair, I think everything in moderation is okay. Cigars, pipes, premium tobacco, this is a generations old practice and an art and a ceremony, and it should always be treated as such. You shouldn't be taking your cigar for granted. You shouldn't be taking your pipe for granted, because much of it is a time-honored tradition. And how do you honor a time-honored tradition? Well, you honor it with time. So take your time, go slow, enjoy, don't overindulge, and share what you can while you can, because frankly, it just feels good. Cheers.